The NBA draft is just over a week away. The Bulls, they got the number 4 pick, and they also picked 15 in the first round. What could they possibly be doing at 4? And what could they possibly be doing at 15? I'm Ernest Shepard, aka Shep. We're going to get into it a little bit. This Shep speaks about things. Hey everybody, how's everyone doing? I hope you're loving on yourselves and loving on your people. Please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. I am trying to get into doing some things a little more consistently. I got some things on the horizon, and your subscriptions, your likes, it would help grow the channel. It would help grow what I'm trying to grow and develop. I would greatly appreciate it. So if you like what you see, or if you just want to support, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. If you want to comment, comment. I am one of those people, I do not shy away from responding to anything that is said to me. I will get with you, I will talk to you, I will engage. I'm not above engaging. So if you like what I'm talking about, or if you have your own particular take, drop that in the comments as well. But again, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'm Shep. Now let's get into it. So the NBA draft is less than 2 weeks away, and it's just over a week away. And the Bulls are kind of what I would consider to be in the catbird seat, picking at number 4. And from everyone's perspective who analyzes and follows the NBA draft, number 4 is the last of the sweet spots, so to speak, because most draft pundits are considering this a 4-player draft and everyone else on the outside. Now, your top 4 players, you have A.J. Debonsa. Chances are he's either going to go to the Washington Wizards or the Utah Jazz. I don't see him getting past Utah if Washington decides not to take him at number 1. You also have Darren Peterson, guard out of Kansas. There is some chatter, there is some conversation that Peterson may actually be the one who falls. A lot of that has to do with how he has conducted himself in interviews, not in an immature way, but a little bit more guarded than most draft prospects are, from what the reports say. But I don't see that happening. But we'll get into that in the event that he does fall to the Bulls at 4. You also have Cameron Boozer, forward from Duke, and you have Caleb Wilson, forward from North Carolina. Again, the Bulls picked with the 4th pick, so let's just be 100% honest. They're going to get the player who falls. It's not going to be A.J. Debonsa. A.J. Debonsa, most people project him to be the most can't-miss prospect in this draft, in this season's draft. 6'8", elite scorer, very athletic, a lot of room to grow. He understands the ins and outs of an offense, pretty decent passer. He can work on his rebounding a little bit, but rebounding and certain things in basketball, oftentimes it depends on the type of game plan a team has. So certain things that we may look at on the outside, on the inside, and we'll, if you get into just the Michigan, the Wolverines squad, where they're going to most likely have 3 players picked in the top 15, all playing the same position or similar positions. Sometimes, depending on the game plan, that's going to dictate how you score, who rebounds, and all of that. But there's zero chance, barring the Bulls trading for the number 1 overall pick, which isn't happening. But barring that happening, zero chance that the Bulls are going to get the bounce. Zero chance. If it were me, and I'm running the Utah Jazz, who picked number 2, I'm calling Washington and I'm asking them, hey, what do you all need? I wouldn't overpay for the Bonsa, but the Bonsa's a BYU product. He's used to the Utah market. Utah fans know who he is. He's a recognizable name. He puts what I call asses in seats. I don't think he'll have that same impact with the Wizards, but for the Wizards' sake, they haven't come out and committed to a player yet, which means they're still deciding. And with the number one overall pick of the four, the elite four, I would call, well, Caleb Wilson's no chance that he ends up the number one overall pick. No chance. And I'll get into why in a little bit. But if I'm the Wizards, I wouldn't just stick with the Bonza. I would turn over every stone, look over every corner, look up under the bed, under the couches, pull up some pillows, some blankets, and scorch the earth to see if Derek Peterson makes sense or Boozer makes sense. Me personally, I think Boozer makes the most sense for Washington, especially with Anthony Davis being there. We know he's injury prone. That's a team that, with the moves that they made at the trade deadline at the middle of the season last season, sorry, throat's a little parched. With the trade deadline moves that the Washington Wizards made, getting Trae Young and Anthony Davis, very injury prone, and quite frankly, he's not the type of player that I would want to have if I'm running the Wizards for my franchise. One, he's not the future. Two, he's one of those players, it's time for him to continue going on and chasing the ring. And I could see a bunch of contenders, Golden State, for instance, San Antonio. I'll throw this out there, and a lot of people may think I'm crazy. Minnesota getting Anthony Davis, a healthy Anthony Davis, puts Minnesota right in the mix with Oklahoma City and San Antonio to compete for the Western Conference crown and to compete for the title. A healthy Anthony Davis there. That being said, there are so many contenders that can use a healthy Davis. Got to find someone to replace him. And the perfect replacement for him would be Cam Boozer. 6'8", just under 6'9", 252 pounds. Averaged a double-double at Duke. He does all of the things necessary. And in most drafts, he would be the number one overall pick. Hands down. But it's a different draft. AJ DeBonsa, much higher ceiling, not as high of a floor as Boozer, which is why Washington will likely go with DeBonsa. And if it's not DeBonsa, then it would be Peterson, who I also think is a better fit in Washington. Why? Well, who's the shooting guard in Washington? I'll wait. Exactly. They have no playoff contending level starting shooting guard. Can DeBonsa play that role at 6'8"? Yeah, he can. Would it be slightly miscast? Possibly. I can see opposing shooting guards, smaller shooting guards, taking advantage of him. His defense, of the four, his defense was considered probably the worst of that four of the quartet. But without the Wizards actually coming out and committing to a player just yet, everything's on the table. But we know it's not going to be Wilson. It could be DeBonsa. Most likely it will be DeBonsa. It could be Peterson, who's a better fit than DeBonsa. Or it could be Boozer, who, to me, is the perfect fit for what the Wizards need. But I'm not running the Wizards. I'm also not running the Utah Jazz. And if DeBonsa goes 1, Peterson or Boozer will go 2. There's also a possibility that Wilson could go 2. His athleticism fits that youth movement just fine. And Utah has the infrastructure with the players that are there where Wilson can actually grow. They also have a coach a coaching staff who has developed some players. They could provide Wilson with a good enough of a foundation and focus on winning in order to get there. However, outside of Keontae George, where is the scoring coming from? I like Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen sometimes in, sometimes out. I like Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. is not a number one go-to scorer. In other words, Utah needs a number one guy. They need that go-to guy. Darren Peterson, well, some of the shots that he took in college when he played, the knock on him is that he played 24 games. Now, granted, there are other players in this draft that have played just as many games or less due to a bunch of different injuries here or there, but him checking himself out of games would be why he would not get even stronger consideration, if not just the clear-cut, unanimous number one overall pick with Washington. But I see Peterson going number two to Utah because Utah needs that dude, if you know what I mean. And that leads me to Memphis, who has the number 3 overall pick. We don't really know what Memphis is going to do. Memphis will be choosing from the 2 players of the quartet that's left. It could be Peterson, Wilson, Boozer. We know it's not going to be DeBonta because DeBonta's only going 1 or 2. So we'll cancel out DeBonta. And that leaves those 3 players potentially. If Utah goes with Peterson at number 2, Memphis, they already have a go-to scorer in John Morant, but in case you've been living under a rock, John Morant is not necessarily the future of the franchise. And if they can get out of that contract, they're going to try to get out of that contract. What way to move on from Morant than bringing in some talent who can be the new face of the franchise? If we go with how the first 2 picks are going to go, that leaves Boozer and Wilson. And I do see, if it's Boozer and Wilson, I see Memphis going in a couple of different ways. There is an interesting trade rumor that's been going around, and now that the NBA Finals are done, which is what kind of quieted the rumor a little bit, but the rumor that's been going around is Memphis wants to unload John Morant. In order to get out of John Morant's contract, they are willing to part ways with the number 3 pick. Whether that or not I believe that's not up for me to say. It's interesting, depending on the team. But if you think about the teams in the rest of the lottery, the Bulls make sense. But John Morant with the Bulls, that doesn't make sense. And I'll get into why in a few moments. The Clippers, they don't make sense. Why? Because they already have Darius Garland. Darius Garland's the point guard. Him and John Morant play the same position. Garland can play the 2, but we're talking about a very small backcourt. That's not going to work. Would it make sense with Brooklyn? Of course. It absolutely would make sense with Brooklyn. And Brooklyn actually has a few players that they can send back in a trade. Brooklyn also has the money. Would Brooklyn be interested in a number 3 overall pick? I actually think they would. If I'm Brooklyn, I would, because I know that they have some players that they identify as top-tier talent, and they would love a better bite at the apple. So look out for Brooklyn. Look out for Morant and the Brooklyn trade buzz happening, going out and about a little bit. Someplace I read where Minnesota is also one of those teams that could kick the tires on the John Morant sweepstakes, but a lot of that has to do with where Giannis goes. If Giannis goes to Miami, like some people are saying, Is Ja Morant the fallback option? It's possible. Now, would Memphis offer the number 3 overall pick? Most likely not. And here's why. What Memphis is missing is top tier elite talent. This is a very deep draft, an extremely deep draft. However, after 4, your guaranteed elite talent starts to wane down a little bit. Things start looking a little bit different. Then you have your smorgasbord of point guards. Minnesota's not picking in the lottery. Minnesota's not picking in the top 15, top 20. They're not going to take the number 3 overall pick. Why? Because, quite frankly, they're trying to win the title. And to take Minnesota's pick, I mean, Memphis may do that, but Memphis may also just decide to add on some future pick or whatnot, something protected. Right now, you can only protect picks in the top 10, according to the new rules that's going to eliminate tanking. You can only have the top 10 picks protected. So if something happens between Memphis and Minnesota, it will be something along those lines. But keep an eye on Brooklyn, especially seeing that Brooklyn missed out on the top 4. Brooklyn has young talent that they can part ways with. They have Nick Claxton. They have Sharp, Torrey. They have a bunch of young players and a couple of veterans that they can part ways with in order to get Ja Morant. And Ja Morant would help Brooklyn by putting asses in seats. I mean, he's not right before the injury that ended his season. He wasn't playing up to his capabilities, and his statistics have gone down during the course of his career. However, sometimes a change of scenery makes all the difference in the world. All he needs is a change of scenery. And I think he'll go back to being the player that he was, my personal opinion. I don't see the Bulls doing it. The rumored deal involving the Bulls were, and I've seen this in multiple sources, were the Bulls to get Morant and the number 3 overall pick. And then the Bulls will send out number 4, Patrick Williams, Rob Dillingham, and Jalen Smith. In normal years, it makes sense for the Bulls. I don't think that even though Ja Morant's talented, Morant's very talented, I don't think that Morant fits this Bulls timeline as it's currently constructed. I've heard people say, well, what would you do with Josh Giddey? Josh Giddey's a good player. He's not a superstar. But, hell, Giannis is probably going to get traded before draft night. And Giannis is a superstar. Superstars get traded. Luka Doncic got traded for Anthony Davis and the Max Christie and the bag of bones. Superstars do get traded. So Giddey could be traded. He wouldn't go back to Memphis in that deal. I think the Bulls would be stupid to do that. But just to get out of Patrick Williams' contract, and I think to me that would be the only justification for even entertaining Ja Morant, possibly rehabilitating his player profile, building up his trade value, and then shipping him back out. But if it fails, then what? And now you have a player who would probably endear himself in Chicago very well, I gotta say. But then you have a player that's unhappy either not producing, not winning, or in a place where he doesn't really want to be. I don't. Chicago's a great city. I don't see Morant being compelled to want to play for the Bulls. I don't. And if that ends up the case, you have to think about the rookie that comes in and how certain poisons can ruin the locker room. Jaden Ivey, you know. Think about the Jaden Ivey situation and the Bulls locker room having to deal with that. Why would you bring in Morant and some of the different distractions that he brings to the table? Even though, I will say, a change of scenery will bring out a much better, more focused John Morant. It would return him back to the conversation of being considered as one of the faces of the league. But it's going to require a change of scenery. He's going to have to get the hell out of Memphis. Now, if Miami don't end up landing Giannis, I do see Minnesota kicking the tires, and I can see him going to Minnesota. I can see Morant going to Dallas. This is going to sound crazy, y'all. But I can actually see Morant going to Detroit. People would say, well, they got Cade Cunningham. Yes, they do. Cade Cunningham is a damn good point guard. But Cade Cunningham can also play a little off ball. And what are the Pistons missing? Another scorer. Think about it. So, if you like what you hear, again, like, subscribe to the channel, help the channel grow. I want to get this consistency going, and I'm in the process of putting something together. More details on that at another time. This is going to be a series of every day, just kind of like a breakdown on certain things. So, but back to the topic at hand. If Memphis stays at number 3, I personally see them going with Boozer, but they could surprise us and go with Caleb Wilson. If a team like Brooklyn, which allows, a trade with Brooklyn for Morant, that would allow Memphis to go a little bit further back in the draft, but not too far back, where they couldn't get one of the point guards, Keaton Wagler or Darius Acuff may be available at that point too at 6. But if it's Brooklyn, I don't see Boozer going to Brooklyn. If Brooklyn were to somehow get the number 3 overall pick, and again, I'm not talking about things that I've heard from sources. These are just thoughts that I have, just my honest assessment of the teams that make sense going after Morant. Brooklyn, to me, even though it's a different timeline, but they need to be able to put asses in seats, especially with the Knicks winning the title. Once the Knicks won the chip, Brooklyn, who's already considered like the second sister of the area, you got to do something. You got to do something to counter that. Brooklyn, you got to do something. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Putting together a trade package for John Morant, taking on that salary, taking on another draft pick, a high draft pick or whatnot to do that. If it's a team like Brooklyn, it changes things. Brooklyn, Caleb Wilson, makes a whole lot of sense. And that will leave Boozer to the Bulls at 4. But let's just say everything stays chalk. No trades happen. Nothing goes down. I have Memphis going with Cameron Boozer. He's a solid citizen. He is, some people don't think he is potentially a guy to be the guy for a championship contender. I think those people are stupid. Some people say, oh, that's a bad word. I don't give a fuck. It's stupid thinking. Look, y'all. Cameron Boozer averaged 22 points and 10 rebounds to go along with 4 assists. He was a walking double-double in college. He's won everywhere he's played. If it wasn't for some piss-poor time management, where a timeout should have been called to calm down your troops, Michigan, well, not Michigan, Duke does not go to the final. Duke goes to the Final Four. Boozer dominated. Dominated every opponent he played against. We kind of romanticize in athleticism and think that athleticism and the ceiling of the player that sometimes that they match. There's only one Giannis. Giannis is one of one. Michael Jordan, one of one. LeBron James, one of one. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's not an athletic marvel. That is the Joker. What helps them is the fact that they are very heady, very competitive basketball players with a high IQ, and they know what to do. They know how to play the game. If I'm Memphis, I'm scooping them up. If I'm Brooklyn or another team, maybe I go with Wilson. I don't know. But let's say, for instance, we stay chalk, and that leaves the Bulls at number 4, and they're looking at Caleb Wilson. Caleb Wilson, 6'9", 210 pounds. He's going to have to add at least 10, 15 pounds to that frame to be able to handle the rigors of the NBA. But it goes down to the Bulls picking the player that is left over from the Elite Four. It's the player who falls to them. They can't go wrong either way. It's not going to be AJ DeBonta. Only a torn ACL and bad medicals will cause DeBonta to fall from 1 all the way down to 4. That's not happening. It may be Darren Peterson. It may be. Some people are making light of the fact that he only played 24 games, the issue with creatine, his creatine levels causing cramping. Hey, look, I can personally vouch for the fact that when your creatine levels are high, it really fucks with your body in so many different ways. It fucks with your cramping, it fucks with your heart rate, so many different things that happens to your body when your creatine levels are high. I know because I experienced it. It's debilitating at times. So I'm going to cut him some slack on that. If he doesn't interview well, and that's what causes him to fall to 4, the Bulls will be happy to pick him up. I guarantee it. He can score and shoot from anywhere. Now, he has this idea that he's a point guard, and that may be true. Shoot first point guard. That may be true. But of the 4 players, the 4 elites, Peterson is by far the most gifted offensively. He's also a good defensive player too. He reminds me and others, I've heard others say this, and I agree, he reminds me a lot of Anthony Edwards. Has the athleticism, he has the size. When he's invested, he has the guile. And the Bulls would be happy to get him if he were to fall. If it were Boozer, I've already sang Boozer's praises. Just under 6'9", 252. He's a bruiser who can shoot. People keep thinking he's his dad, Carlos Boozer. He's a different player. It's a different type of player. It's a lot more finesse to his game than his father's game. So let's not get that twisted. If it's Carlos Boozer, see what I did there? If it's Carlos Boozer, even the Bulls version of Carlos Boozer got double-doubles most nights. Cameron Boozer is a better player now than his dad was in his peak. You get where I'm going there? Most teams would be happy with a Carlos Boozer. But Cameron Boozer being considered as better. His 3-point range. At the NBA Combine, he was one of the better shooters there. Only missed, if I'm not mistaken, I think there were four 3-point shots he missed during the Combine, the workouts. He's an excellent passer. Sees over defenses. Great footwork. Is he as athletically gifted as a lot of players? No. But his vertical was 35-inch vertical. That's not bad for a player that's 250 pounds and stands just under 6'9". And guess what that means? 35 inches, we're talking almost 3 feet. He's almost 6'9". Has over a 7'1" wingspan. All you gotta do is jump up and dunk. That's it. So why are we worried about that? So if it's him, he works well with Josh Giddey. I can see it now. There are 2 passers on the floor. Teams are sharing the ball. 2 people can take the ball up. Bryson Graham has already said that he's looking for players with size, length, athleticism, physicality. Boozer being 250 pounds, he may not have Caleb Wilson's athleticism, but does he need it? Serious question. Does he really need it? So if it's Boozer, I'm happy. Let's say, for instance, it's not Boozer and it's Wilson. I'm still happy. But it's the opposite. There was something that I heard, and I think it was Joe Colley from the Chicago Sun-Times. I think it was him. He was talking about a player. I forget the player that it was. But he was mentioning that he's comparing this to 2 players. One player was a basketball player, also performing as an athlete. Not the exact quote, paraphrasing. He talked about this other player who is an athlete learning the game of basketball. Caleb Wilson is an athlete learning the game of basketball. High-level athlete learning the game of basketball. His ceiling is higher than everyone in this draft. Every single player in this draft. According to Hoops Hype, they have him in their most recent mock draft. They have Caleb Wilson going to the Bulls. Most mock drafts have Caleb Wilson going to the Bulls. And not because of his ceiling, because a lot of players, a lot of pundits believe that Wilson's ceiling is higher than Devontae's. His floor, however, his baseline is not as high as the other 3 players. So it's a player that's going to have to come in. He's going to have to work on his jump shot. He can score, but he reminds me, personally, of a slightly more refined Amin Thompson when Amin Thompson came into the league with Houston. Slightly more refined. And I'm an Amin Thompson fan. I see multiple all-star appearances for Amin Thompson. Sir Thompson also. So that's who I see Caleb Wilson as. Not necessarily a poor man's Amin Thompson, but a slightly more refined version of that. Best defensive player of the top 4. He's the best defensive player, although he has had lapses with one-on-one defense, but he's a good help side defender, good shot blocker, great, excellent rebounder. He knows how to get in position. So does Boozer. I don't see the Bulls going wrong with either player. But it won't matter because they're going to take the one who's left. Plain and simple. Now, 15, Hoops Hype's latest mock draft have the Bulls going after Hans Steinbach out of Washington. 6'11", 6'10", 6'11", big. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think, given the fact that Leonard Miller is still on the team and whoever the coach is going to be may want to invest some time in trying to develop Leonard Miller. I think he can be a low-cost option to help the transitional period. I think there's a lot of untapped potential in Miller. I do. I'm not alone. I see Miller continuing to grow if he works on his game, fills out his frame a little bit. He's another player who can add on about 15 pounds, get a little bit stronger, but he already has that dog in him. So I don't see Steinbach as the option here. A couple of mock drafts, I heard of Dave Mara. I don't see that. I don't see Mara fitting the playing style too much, and the reason being is because while he has the length, he has the enough athleticism. He can get up and down the floor. Okay, I don't necessarily see Mara as a 28-minute per night type of player. I don't see him developing that in his career. Quite frankly, if the Bulls decide to go with another big at 15, I think they should go down the Jaden Qantas route, kind of give him a redshirt season, provided that his knees check out okay. I think Qantas is, at the highest high, everybody being healthy, he's the best defensive player in the draft if he's 100% healthy. Reminds me of Mitchell Robinson, but slightly better, a little stronger, a little more stronger than Mitchell Robinson. And if I'm the Bulls and I'm thinking big at 15, that's where I'm going. But me personally, I wouldn't go with a big at 15. I know that there are some rumors that the Bulls may actually look to trade up a little bit. According to Joe Colley, they may be interested in a couple of the guards and will be willing to trade up a couple of spots. Some people are holding out hope for Keaton Wagler. The only way that happens is if Wagler falls deep into the draft, then we're looking at 8 where Atlanta's picking or 9 where Dallas is picking. But a lot of people are saying Mars probably going to Atlanta, and if Dallas stays at 9, they're going to go with Burris. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't necessarily see Keaton Wagler going 6. We don't know what the Clippers are thinking, what they're going to do. They may trade out depending on how they see their team and whether or not they want to have one more run with Kawhi. So we don't know how that's going to go. I do see Wagler falling, but not far enough where the Bulls can actually jump out and get him. Because I think if he gets where Golden State is, I think Golden State picks him up. If he gets to Milwaukee, which is right before Golden State, if it gets to Milwaukee, I see Milwaukee picking him up. I don't see a scenario where Milwaukee turns down a player that can shoot the lights out the gym. I don't see it. But let's say, for instance, the Bulls stay at 15. There's a lot of talk about Cameron Carr. I like Cameron Carr. He's a decent shooter, decent defender. He's athletic. He fits in pretty much any type of style that you play in. He's a player to look out for. I also like LeBaron Philon. I think Philon is a good player. He's a bit slight. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Rob Dillingham, but he plays bigger than Dillingham Jr., a little more control than Dillingham Jr. I see, if it's a guard, I see them going in those two directions. Another player, though, that I want people to kind of keep an eye on, who may fall in the draft. Some people are hyping up Michael Brown. But depending on what happens with the top 5. If Memphis trades number 3 and John Morant, if the Clippers decide to get out of number 5, I see a scenario where Michael Brown actually falls down to the later end of the top 10. If I'm Dallas and Brown is there and Burrs is there, what do I do? What do I do? You also have Kingston Flemings. There's a possibility that any of the guards that will start being considered after the Bulls pick at 4, there's a possibility that half of them could be fallers when it comes to the draft. And it becomes a thing about need, and it becomes a thing about what the teams are looking for. You know, you're going to have the 3 Michigan bigs. They're going to be picked up in the top 15. That's guaranteed. All 3 of them probably will go in the lottery. If its indications are saying that the Atlanta Hawks are looking at Mara at 8, Mara will probably be the first one off the board. But then you have Lindenberg and you have Johnson. So that's also going to take away 3 spots. So with things building now, with chatter boosting back up, now that the NBA Finals are over, it's going to get very interesting. I do see some movement and shaking. I do think that Memphis is going to try to attach number 3 with John Morant. Not to go further down the draft, not too far down the draft, but with one of those teams that might be looking for a superstar. Hell, I can see Memphis saying, hey, Sacramento, we'll give you 3 and we'll take your Zach LaVine if you are willing to take John Morant. Sacramento needs to put asses in seats. It makes sense. If I'm Morant, I wouldn't be happy, but again, it makes sense. So there's going to be some moving and shaking. I expect at least 3 trades happening amongst the lottery teams. I don't anticipate on Oklahoma City keeping their 2 picks. I wouldn't be surprised unless Lindenberg is there at 12, and I do see him being there at 12. Although Golden State could be one of those teams sniffing around him as well. But if Lindenberg is not there at 12, I see Oklahoma City trading out. They're going to have to do something anyway. I also see Oklahoma City doing what Memphis is rumored to be doing. I see Oklahoma City actually saying, hey, we will attach 1 or 2 of our draft picks to Lou Dort's contract. Which one of you teams want it? We'll take one of your players whose salary we can get rid of. They're about to hit a financial crisis, so that may dictate how some of the draft goes as well. We're about to get into some interesting times, everybody. It's going to be fun. So, well, that's all I have for today. Thank you all for tuning in, for watching. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It'll help the channel grow. I've got some things that I'm working on, things that are coming up in the future. More conversation. You'll be seeing my face more often. This is the first of many videos that I have as we build up to the NBA draft, which is happening in just over a week now. Coaching rumors, a lot of little stuff going on. Giannis being on the move. Oh my goodness. Let's just wait, enjoy, and dig in. Everybody, I am Shep. This is Shep Speaks About Things. Love on yourselves. Love on your people. Be safe out there. And thank you.